Which games does she think are the best? The long ones, the short ones, simple, complex. What do you think for Ambie Valdez? Are all her favorite games 18XX? Let's see how well you guess.
Hi, I'm Ambie, and this is my top 100 favorite games as of the end of 2019. This video is my numbers 90 through 81. My number 90 is Happy Salmon, which is a pretty fun, silly party game. Everyone has a stack of cards that are all the same, and they have different things on it, like saying high five or pound it, or switcheroo, which are different things you have to do with someone else. So you draw a card and you're saying what you have, like, oh, high five, and other people around the table are also saying what they have. And if you find someone that matches, then you do the high five with them, and then you can get rid of that card. So you're trying to get rid of all of your cards. It's really quick and frantic and active, so it's really fun just playing when you're tired of sitting down, because you're going to be standing up and like running around doing high fives at each other. My number 89 is Baseball Highlights 2045, which is a two-player deck building game that's pretty thematic. It takes place in the future where baseball games are 6 innings and there's cyborgs and robots that play too. So you're playing, each mini game is 6 turns and each card is a different player. So it's a streamlined baseball game where you play down a card and it tells you like what hits it makes, but then the other person plays down a card to counter that. It can have catches and canceling your hits. And so you're playing back and forth to counter each other and to score. So it's pretty interesting. And then there's deck building in between each mini game. You can buy new players and upgrade your team. So Baseball Highlights is a fun back and forth game for 2 players. And if you like baseball, it's also really thematic, so it's good. My number 88 is Brew Crafters, which is a worker placement game about making beer. I don't like drinking beer, but I think the process of making beer is pretty neat, and this game is pretty thematic too, so it's fun. In the game, you need to go to different spots on the board with your workers to collect resources for your beer and to produce your beer. So you collect things like malt and fruit for specialty beers, and you get the ingredients, and there are different beers that you can make. You also are upgrading your own board to get things like more storage space or better production. One interesting thing about the game is that whoever makes the first beer of each type gets like a special gold medal because they're the ones that made that beer. And there are different strategies that you can go for. You can either make a lot of cheap beers because you get points each time you sell beer, or you can try to make specialty beers, which are more expensive, but they take longer and are more difficult to make. So it's fun and thematic, trying to go like, I'm a specialty brewery, or I'm just making a lot of Bud Lights. My number 87 is Insider, which is a social deduction game that's like 20 questions, but there's someone who knows the answer. So in Insider, everyone gets a different role. There's normal people, there's the person who's answering the questions, and then there's the insider who knows the answer but is also asking questions. And everyone wants to get the answer right, but then at the end of the game, if people can guess who the insider was, then the insider loses, and otherwise the insider wins. So I really like 20 questions, and I find it hard to try to find the insider because a lot of times I'm just trying to get the answer right, but you have to not try to get the answer right. You have to let other people ask questions and see who's asking really good questions and could be the insider. So that's a really interesting twist on the 20 questions game. If you played Werewords, it's a similar concept, but in Werewords, the trader is trying to get people not to guess the words, and it also has an app and the words are harder. So Werewords isn't on my list this year, and I'm not sure, like, it changes which one I like more at each time, but I like that Insider doesn't need an app because it just has a deck of cards to tell you what the word is that you're trying to guess. My number 86 is 18CLE, which is the first 18XX game on my list. So it's an economic railroad and stockholding game that takes place in Cleveland, and it takes place part of it takes place during the Great Depression. There are a couple of interesting things I like about 18CLE. one thing is that there's a national railroad, a government railroad, that eats up your companies when they don't have a train. And it's interesting just trying to either let your company get taken or trying to not let it get taken, depending on what you want to do. So I've done both, where like I have a bad company that I want to get taken because then I get shares in the government railroad, which can be good. And also, the government railroad is controlled by the players. It lays track, which not all 18xx games have the government railroad actually doing stuff. And that's interesting because it's controlled by the person who has priority deal, but also the people to the left and right of them can each like lay a track, I think. So that's pretty interesting. Also, part of the game takes place during the Great Depression. So normally when you upgrade cities, they get better and better. But in 18CLE, at one point, they get worse, and then they get better in the next upgrade. So in order to get to the next upgrade, they have to get worse first. So you're not getting as much money, and then you're planning for the future. So that's pretty interesting. My number 85 is Doodle Rush, which is a real-time drawing party game. In Doodle Rush, everyone has 6 different words that they're trying to draw, and they have 6 different whiteboards that they're drawing on. So the rounds alternate between drawing rounds and guessing rounds, 1 minute for each round, and everyone's drawing at the same time and everyone's guessing at the same time. So you get points if people guess your words, but also you get points for guessing other people's words. So it's real frantic and fast, and I like drawing games and I also like real-time games, so I really like Doodle Rush. My number 84 is Legacy of Dragonholt, which is an adventure fantasy game that's book-based. So in the game, you're reading different passages in a book, kind of like a choose your own adventure, but you also have a character that you've created that has different stats. And depending on your stats, you can do certain things. So it's like a role-playing game mixed with a choose your own adventure. And I played this solo, but it plays multiplayer too, where you would pass around the book. But I think I prefer reading games with fewer players because I just read it silently to myself. So the story was pretty good. There's an overall story where you're in the city and you meet a bunch of different people and do side quests for them. But then there's also main quests that you can go on. And you don't necessarily go on all of them in one playthrough. So you can play through it multiple times with different characters and different choices that you make. My number 83 is Igloo Pop, which is a sound-based game. So in the game there are 12 igloos, and each igloo has a different number of beads on them from 2 to 13. There's also cards that are going to be in the middle of the table that have different numbers on them. Some have 1 number, some have 3 numbers, and they're randomized. There's a real-time phase where everyone's picking up igloos and shaking them, and just from the sound trying to figure out how many beads are in there. And once you decide that, you bet by putting the igloo on one of the cards that has the number that you think. If you get it right, you get that card, plus everyone else's bets that were on that card that got it wrong. So it's fun trying to figure out how many beads are in the igloo, but there's also some strategy in figuring out which card to put it on, because you might want to go for a card that other people have bet on if it has a bunch of bets on it, even if there's another card that also has the same number that doesn't have any bets on it. So Igloo Pop is a really unique and fun, quick game. My number 82 is Legends of Andor, which is a cooperative adventure game. In the game, everyone's a different character, and you're trying to complete a certain quest, but then partway through the game, new rules can come out, and new objectives can come out. It's very puzzly because one of the mechanisms is you're trying to prevent bad guys from moving into the castle, because if too many of them go in, then you lose. But their movement is predetermined and goes in a certain order, so you know where they're going to be moving and you can go to head them off and try to attack them. Another thing is that each time you kill a bad guy, it advances a timer, and you only have so much time in order to complete the mission. So I like the puzzle of trying to optimize your moves to be able to kill enough bad guys that they don't overrun the castle, but you also need to complete the quest. My number 81 is Battlestar Galactica, which is a hidden trader game based on the TV show Battlestar Galactica. It's really thematic, but actually the first time I played it, I hadn't watched the show, and I still really enjoyed it. It's a pretty long and epic game. So in the game, everyone is a different role. They're a different character, and you're on a ship trying to get to Earth or Kobol or some planet. But everyone's also a hidden role, either a human or a Cylon. So the humans are trying to get to their destination, but the Cylons are trying to make it so the humans die before that happens by either making them run out of fuel or making the population go down or the morale go down. So those are different tracks that can go to 0. So on your turn, you take different actions to do things like fight off the enemy or to repair the ship or something. But at the end of each turn, there's a crisis card that's drawn that has different bad things that happen. And they also have skill checks that you need to pass in order for bad things not to happen. But the way that works is everyone can put in cards that are different colors, and some colors are positive and some are negative. So if you get above a certain bar with all of them combined, then you'll pass, otherwise you'll fail. So the Cylons can be putting in bad cards secretly, and you don't really know who the Cylon is. So it's very tense just trying to figure out who the Cylon is, and there's a lot of like accusing each other. And now that I've watched the show, I know the game is also really thematic, so I really like the tenseness of trying to figure out who the Cylon is. It's very stressful too, but like in a good way. So I really like Battlestar Galactica. Those were my numbers 90 to 81 favorite games. Stay tuned for the rest of my list, and thanks for watching!
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando, in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.